It's a dubious distinction, however, Steve, to be introduced as an economist, since for most people the main reason for economics is to make astrology look good. When you and I get into a financial press, what we try and do is cut expenditures in absolute terms. When Washington gets into a financial press, they simply take the slope of increase and reduce it a little bit and hope that revenues will catch up with it. That's the approach. How many of you here have received a credit card solicitation within the last 30 days? Please, show of hands. Everybody. The reason for that is that lending on credit card debt is 5 times more profitable than regular banking. And the bankers are going to learn a basic lesson which you all know, and that is that with higher rates of return come higher risk.
Right now to discuss the crude market, we join David Smith in studio. He's editor of Cyclical Investing. And David, thanks for joining us.
Investors and their professional advisors attended a workshop at the Hershey Hotel today. They learned about the economic cycles from noted economist David Smith. And Doug Bullock has
In 1987, I might add, when the stock market lost 22% in a day, people were running around saying the sky is falling, we're in a major depression, or terrible things will happen, stay out of the market. I looked at that market and concluded that because there were only 12% of households which owned stocks, and most of them were wealthy and weren't going to stop buying consumer goods because of an inconvenience in the stock market, that it would have no effect on either the economy or the stock market. In 11 days, I predicted the crash, I might add, to the day. I said, get out if the stock market falls below 2,300 on the Dow. That happened on the 16th of October. The market collapsed on the 19th. Then, 11 days after the market collapsed, applying the reasoning that I've just described to you, with only 12% of the households owning stock, I said, get back in the market with both feet. Last time to get in for the greatest bull market of the century.
I had this warning about stocks 6 months before the October '87 crash.
What about stocks? I still think that there's a correction in the wind. So I suggest to you that we probably have a correction here. The only way you can play that is not with reference to cyclical factors, but with reference to technical timing. However, we are still a long way from this area here, late in the inflationary phase, where the bull market ends. Okay, so there's still a lot of life left in the bull market. There's some cloud in the immediate future, but the long-term trend is still positive.
As we now know, the stock market did indeed crash on October 19th, 1987.
Despite the day's drop on Wall Street, local financial planners say conditions could result in some good investment opportunities. An economic expert conducting a workshop for local investors and advisors today predicts the bull market will recover.
It has been a technician's dream. In other words, the market declined precisely to the point where the technicians would say it would stop.
Smith says the bull market should recover as long as certain lows are not broken, triggering a panic. But he says the economy could be in trouble 3 years down the road.
There are conditions in the economic cycle which will suggest a top of the bull market, which I would estimate would occur maybe 3 years from now. Indeed, the stock market peaked 2 years and 9 months later in July 1990 at around 3,000 on the Dow.
The demon extrapolator is somebody who looks back 5 years and projects that into the future indefinitely. In other words, whatever your most recent 5-year experience is, you assume will go on forever. This is a very human tendency, I might add, because very often your immediate future does resemble your immediate past. The problem with that is, however, that you invariably miss the turns. It's very much like driving with reference only to your rear view mirror. Let's do a little exercise. If you would bear with me for just a moment here. I would like you to close your eyes and to imagine that you are in your family sedan driving down a deserted highway. It is a straight highway. Let's say it's the Alberta National Forest Highway, which is a gorgeous highway that's fairly straight north to south. So just close your eyes. You're driving in the family sedan down the Alberta National Highway. And along comes a demon painter, and he paints your windshield and your side windows. So imagine your windshield and your side windows now painted over. You only have reference, therefore, to the outside through your rear view mirror through the back. You're doing 60 miles an hour. How comfortable do you feel? Do you see the problem? It's not the other cars because it's a deserted highway. Basically, what this guarantees you is you're driving along. Actually, it works really well. Imagine it again. You're on the straight highway. It's working really well, right? You're looking in the rearview mirror. You're looking to the rear, and you're adjusting your car a little bit. But what will invariably happen? You can open your eyes now. You will, because I don't want you to experience the crash. You will invariably miss the turns, won't you? You cannot help but miss the turns if you are driving with regard to your rear view mirror. And that's essentially what happens in the stock market. But we come to the granddaddy of all, this time it's different arguments. And that is the one that looks to Microsoft, Bill Gates, and what's been going on in technology, and the idea that we are in another economic transformation on a par with the Industrial Revolution replacing agriculture 200 years ago. And then there was another revolution whereby coal and electromechanical technology, as I said earlier, coal and mechanical technology were replaced by oil and electromechanical technology, and that represented a transformation of the human enterprise equivalent to the early Industrial Revolution. You should really see the Industrial Revolution as two industrial revolutions, basically. And the first Industrial Revolution occurred beginning around 1780, and it was fueled by coal, which replaced wood as the prime mover. I don't know if you may remember your history there, but back in the late 1800s, people were worried about deforestation. The idea that we were going to consume all of the trees, basically, because we needed them for energy. Well, along comes coal. In Britain, in Newcastle, they had vast reserves of coal, and the mechanical technology of the Enlightenment suddenly blossomed in terms of being able to produce machines, and so you put the two together. The coal to produce heat, which drove the machines and also fueled the great blast furnaces that made possible the production of huge quantities of metal. You put the coal then together with the mechanical technology, and you totally transformed the human enterprise. People moved off of farms into the cities as factory workers, and there was an enormous change in the occupational distribution of the labor force, how we earned our living, where we lived. I mean, it was just basically the difference between night and day. Imagine a French peasant farmer, and then imagine a British industrial worker. And that was how different things were as a consequence of the Industrial Revolution. Then, about in the 1920s, after World War I, there was a second Industrial Revolution, as I say, when oil replaced coal and electromechanical technology replaced mechanical technology, and people then didn't move to the cities, but rather moved out to the suburbs and commuted to the cities, and factory workers were replaced by white-collar workers. So there was, again, a complete transformation of the human enterprise that occurred in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s as a consequence of the use of oil and the adaptation of electromechanical technology for productive purposes. Unfortunately, the history of these transformations does not lend any support whatsoever to the idea that the stock market will continue to rise forever. I've been in the investment business for 30 years and have been writing about it in my newsletter, Cyclical Investing, for 14 years. During that period of time, we've had 4 either market declines or sloppy markets, let's say. Investors who have, and investment professionals who have followed my recommendations in cyclical investing have avoided all 4 of those markets. So I've been successful in timing the down markets in 4 out of 4 cases. There have been, therefore, 4 rising markets, and I have timed 3 out of those 4. I missed 1, simply because PE ratios back after the Gulf War were phenomenal, and I wasn't comfortable with that kind of those kind of fundamentals. But instead of concluding that I can't time the market, what I did is I learned something from that. I learned basically that you let your profits run. In other words, that the trend is your friend. Okay, if the trend is my friend, I'll stick with the trend as long as it is my friend. Where I part company, though, with the consensus is they say the trend is your friend, and when the trend is no longer your friend, they say buy and hold anyway. I say the trend is your friend until it ain't. And when it ain't, your stocks don't love you, don't love them, sell them.